YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my catch-up review for Kamen Rider Gavv. Just like with my Gojuju review, I wrote down a series of bullet points of what I wanted to talk about from episodes 32 through 36. So if I forgot something, it's simply because I didn't write anything down about it, because when you're covering 5 episodes, you can't go over everything scene by scene. So diving in, we pick up kind of at the end of the arc we were at previously. The last 2-3 episodes I talked about individually was this kind of mini arc that had Honto and Lakia working together, and it kind of felt fillery. It wasn't filler, because there's definitely some significant stuff that happens with Lakia taking out the person that killed his brother, kind of bonding the characters, but just in general, the last handful of episodes felt kind of like a cool down after a build-up. It felt more fillery in the sense that it felt like it belonged earlier in the series. Not that it was bad, but it was just a little bit weird tonally, but it was kind of funny getting these chunk of episodes, because this episode was just kind of closing off what I was watching before, and then the others were more focused on final form stuff. But it was a nice little conclusion to it. Overall, these episodes, outside of the final form and stuff with Longo at the end, still feels like this weird, almost cool down from the buildup we got from the beginning of the series through the Suga arc. Not that, again, it's been bad, it just feels a bit weird. I think it'll feel different once the whole series is over and you can see the whole big picture, but I definitely feel that the pacing has been uneven, just mixed but not bad in that way. But anyway, I did like that arc, as I think the purpose of bonding together Lakia and Honto worked really well. I think in general they've done a lot to sort of create this great cast dynamic that very much so reminds me of Build while also being very different. There's even nice little moments like Lakia being worried about what Sachika will think when she finds out that he was involved in mass disappearances before, when they do the mass disappearances in the next arc. So yeah, I really did like that, and I thought it was nice to bond them over their shared similar tragedy, and then of course getting to see the catharsis of Lakia taking out the person that killed his brother, and it looks like we're going to do something similar with Honto with the person that kidnapped his mother. Also, I thought it was a nice evolution of Honto's character through Lakia, learning to understand more that just like humans, there are good granite and bad granite. So I thought it was a good evolution of their dynamic and a good way of sort of showing the evolution of Honto's character in regards to his perception of granite, which, you know, at the beginning was kill all of them, and then now he's a little bit more balanced about it. Then we have this arc that's primarily about the debut of the final form, or the 2 final forms in a way. And in a way I felt it was kind of rushed, because it did kind of feel like one of those big power-ups, like here it is. But there was story to it, which I really liked, and when I thought back on it, a lot of the power-ups have kind of been like, not out of nowhere, but they crop up quickly, because like the ice cream one was like, of course it was involved in the arc where he was having a hard time transforming because of his stress, and he just tried ice cream, but that form literally debuted out of, hey, I tried ice cream. So it did just feel a little bit jarring though, because I like, especially when those final forms have a story behind them, and fortunately there was, but just in the context of this, it did feel a little bit rushed. But I did like little stuff like the uncle, he's donating parts of his teeth to make it, and it seems like we're going on a storyline where he might die. There was an interesting scene, I think it was actually in 32, where Neville tried to recruit him and he like rejected it. I honestly thought we were going to lead towards him being taken out. I almost wonder if maybe he's slowly dying from what he's been doing to himself, but before he gets a chance that the Stomach family might take him out. But they've been doing some interesting and good stuff with his character. But then of course the other part of the story of the final form is the fact that you have 100 Gachizo that need to be poured into it. And I do have to say, I really like that moment where the Gachizo we're watching Shoma be so determined to fight Bitter Gavv, which we'll get to in a second, in his civilian state, that they all poured into the power-up, which initially didn't work without them. And it's funny because even though they're not very individualized in terms of like, you don't remember like, oh, there's Harry and there's Jeff. My name is Jeff, of like the Gachizo, but like as a community, I guess, of Gachizo, I really do feel their sort of connection and bond with Shoma, and I hate to keep bringing this up because I swear I'm not trying to find an excuse to take a pot shot at Gotchard, but it's funny to me that you have a series like Gotchard that was primed to have individualized characters for the monsters, and I felt almost none of the bonds outside of Hopper 1 to a degree with the Chemis, but with this, I actually do feel the connection between him and the Gachizo that made that moment work. And then there's like the story about him having to binge eat. I wonder if they're going to come up with a fix for that later, or just kind of assume he does that off screen. And the resolution of that was basically like, hey, savor your food. But I did like the way that ultimately worked, even though part of it felt a little bit rushed for a final form. It's just like, hey, here's another thing. In regards to the forms themselves, I'm not as big a fan of the over one. I think it's just too much brown or whatever color that is. I'm just not that big of a fan of that. But I really do like the master form, especially the Missy variant. I really do like the master form. Part of like the bottom of the legs, I think the coloring is a little uneven, but overall I think it looks really good. It's just a great evolution of the main suit, and I like that it's kind of one of those forms that represents all of the powers he's gathered along the way in regards to the Gachizo pouring into there, but it doesn't present in a weird like amalgam craft project looking suit, and it's just kind of this cool evolution of it. And I do really like the way they work, where he goes back and forth between a speedy form and a more heavy hitting form. Like the final fight with Longo was really well done. Like the fights in this have been really great in general, but that was definitely one of the most unique ones. So I do like it overall for the most part. I also liked it in these episodes. Finally, at the end, we kind of put some more focus on the Longo character. It was funny, I was thinking in the episode he died, I'm like, finally he's getting more focus as we've been slowly focusing more on the Stomach family. But primarily we've been doing the stuff with Jeeb and his wife and the president, and then of course Neville has been always brewing in the background, but he's become like more in the forefront. I can't remember the name of the other sister, but she honestly hasn't had a lot to do. Maybe she'll be next up. But it was nice to see Longo finally get some more focus, and I really like them refocusing on sort of Shoma's childhood dynamic, being made to feel worthless, like he shouldn't exist, and then kind of resolving that. Is outside of the story with Shoma being worried about the fallout with Honto and then dealing with the fallout with Honto, we haven't done a whole lot character-wise with Shoma in a while compared to the others. So it was nice to kind of just have that moment where he's like, you know, maybe I shouldn't have been born, but I'm glad I'm born because I've found this purpose on Earth and I need to protect these people. And it was just kind of a nice check-in to show how far he's come. And also, I have to comment again on what a great character Shoma is for being that light, more fun character, but can also be a badass. Like, he was having a meeting, I think it was with Jeeb's wife, where he's like, well, you know, I hope we can all get along or something like that, but if you know, step out and attack humans, I'm going to kill you, basically. And it's crazy to see the character that would usually be spouting, like, potatoes are the smiles of Earth's hope, forgive everyone, seeing him say stuff like, I'm going to kill you, basically. And he actually follows through with it and can be badass. It's just so refreshing to have that balance, and all the characters feel naturally human. And also, I can't believe we took out Longo. I mean, it's Rider, so there's always ways to bring people back, but I was just really surprised because I've generally been surprised the way that family dynamic has gone down, because usually in any other Rider series, we're in the endgame now. We're in the last little chunk. We'll probably be getting scans or leaks or whatever for the next Rider pretty soon, and usually we'd be gearing up to have some member of the family be redeemed, because that's usually how it goes, and thus far there hasn't really seemed to be any signs of redemption or anything like that for the characters. Not Neville, not the other sister who I just don't know the name of. I can't imagine Jeeb forgiving Shoma, but maybe they could still be redeemed. I'm not necessarily wanting it. I'm pleasantly surprised that he's taken out two of them and they're going for a different approach. I just hope that by the time the series is done, even if they decide to redeem someone, it's literally just one, because I'm really pleasantly surprised at how they've approached this dynamic and him actually taking out Longo. But I'm curious where the story goes from there. I do really wish that we had spent more time with Longo. I feel like he wasn't necessarily prominent at the beginning, but he was more like in the forefront a little bit at the beginning and then took a back seat, and then by the time he finally was out in the forefront, he was killed. So I wish we would have spent more time on him, but kind of like with the weird pacing of these episodes, I think everything will become more clear when the series is done. But overall, still very much enjoying the series. I feel that even though there was some strong stuff in the arc with Valen and Vram kind of bonding, that from that arc till now, the pacing has felt a little bit more mixed. It felt like we slowed down in a weird way, and it doesn't feel as consistent in terms of the pacing, but I still think it's a great series. It's nothing that I'm like, oh, well, this is trash now, but it definitely has felt a little bit weird, but still one of the strongest Rider shows in a while. Let me know what your thoughts on what's going on in Gavv are. Until next time, Dawson Rider, signing out.